Hello, Arlington, and welcome to Zachary Taylor Park. My name is Adam Siegelmoss, and I am here with the Natural Resource Manager for Arlington County, Alonzo Abogadas. Alonzo, could you tell us a little bit about deer and Arlington and why Arlington is doing a deer assessment?
Certainly. So white-tailed deer are a native animal and are important for our local forest health. However, when you have too many deer, that can impact the forest itself. Obviously, deer eat plants, and when they do so, it affects other animals that use that same habitat. And that's one of the things that concerns us. We want to be good stewards of Arlington County, and we're trying to do the best that we can, and this assessment is part of it. Anecdotally, both naturalists and park staff noticed that we may have an overabundance of deer, and we're conducting this assessment to see whether or not it's impacting the forest growth and all the wildlife that depends on it.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what the assessment says?
Certainly. The assessment does say we have an overabundance of deer, and that concerns us. And it's recommended we take some kind of active management of deer. We know that deer are plants, and that affects other habitat and the wildlife that depends on it. But this is the beginning of a conversation. We're hoping that through this, we can decide on what would be the best, how we can best proceed with what we can do about deer within Arlington. But this is just the beginning of what promises to be a conversation with the public.
So, Alonzo, in my neighborhood, I barely see any deer. Are there a lot of deer? Is Arlington overpopulated with deer?
So it can be hard sometimes to see the damage that deer do, and the habits of deer sometimes make it hard to actually see the deer themselves. But Arlington County conducted a drone survey back in April 2021, and conservatively it told us that we have a minimum of 290 deer in Arlington. And I say conservatively because it did not account for federal lands, which we are not allowed to survey. And it also, we know that GW Parkway serves as a wildlife corridor. But we know we have too many deer. We know that the recommendation is that we actively manage that deer. And now we're proceeding with using that information on what we can better do.
So why do we need to manage deer populations in county-owned parks?
Well, because we know that we do have too many deer, and that they do cause issues with forest health that we have. Deer, they're necessary for what we have out there. They can improve the habitat by spreading seeds and fertilizer in the woods. However, when you have too many deer, it doesn't allow plants to regrow, and that is something that really concerns us. An adult deer eats 5 to 7 pounds of vegetation a day, and that can amount to over a ton in a year. Wow. And that is something that seriously concerns us. So we're now looking into what we can actively manage for these deer themselves. We know that the deer numbers will continue to rise at an exponential rate. Why? Because a deer after the first year has 2 fawns. They can do that for over 20 years. So we know that they're going to continue to develop because they have no natural predators, nothing that really can control them. And so thus, we're looking into what active management we need to do.
So what would happen if deer are not managed in Arlington County natural parks?
So studies have shown that 15 to 20 deer per square mile is about the maximum you can have and still allow native plant growth to reproduce and regrow. When you exceed that, then you develop a browse line that placed below 5 or 6 feet where the deer are feeding, and it does not allow for this vegetation to regrow, and that affects all sorts of other creatures. It affects ground nesting birds, affects all the animals, all the insects that feed on there. That feeds 96% of our nesting birds, all 18 of our bats, and so forth. And so for that reason, we need to be able to manage deer numbers so it does not reach that level that it will impact all the other habitat for other wild creatures that we also inhibit those limited natural land parks that we have.
So if the county determines that active deer management is necessary, what management options will the county consider?
Okay, so again, the county's not made any decisions on what we will or will not do. Right now, White Buffalo is going to give us a report. They're going to provide that, and they're also benchmarking what other jurisdictions are doing as far as how they have managed deer themselves. Some of it may include something like surgical sterilization as a non-lethal method, or it could be lethal, hunting, sharpshooting, whatever the case may be. And we'll look at that information. They'll take the report into account. There'll be some public input. And depending on what the county determines is the right course of action, then that, of course, is what will be implemented. But again, we are looking, we're just starting a conversation. There'll be lots of opportunities for some input, and we're looking at what other jurisdictions are doing so that we can best go forward with what would be a good, feasible, practical plan.
Thank you again for your time, Alonzo. This has been a pleasure. If folks want to learn more about this exciting project, please visit the project webpage. There you'll find information about the assessment, the timeline, and how to get involved in the project, including upcoming engagements. And don't forget to sign up for email updates on the project so you can stay connected to the project as it moves forward.